find your lack of faith disturbing.
M3 Radio in the mix.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Don't Tread on Me. I'm your co-host, Beach Ball, filling in for Mad Dog. And we're doing something different today. I got my equipment all ready to go, so it sounds beautiful, I think. A lot better than it has been. Other than, technical issues, we need to talk about the stimulus bill that the Senate is working on. And word came in from last night about 1 o'clock. Kudos to, actually, for once, I'm going to give kudos to both the Republicans and the Democrats for staying up late to get this bill done. But let's be honest, the only reason they stay up late to get this bill done is because they know their asses are on the line if they don't get this bill out. Anyway, it looks like the Senate is going to pass this as I'm recording right now. That's why I was saying this is going to be a little different. It is 10:30 in the morning, the day of Wednesday, the 25th of March. And what we're going to do is we're going to be doing recordings throughout the day, and then I'll put it all together for the show tonight, which is going to be on N3 Radio at n3radio.com, beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Don't tread on me with your co-host, Beach Ball. Anyway, let's tell each other what we're going to do before we do it and then do it. So, as of now, 10:30 in the morning, on the 25th of March, the Senate looks like they have an agreement to pass this bill. They have not voted on it yet, which they will do so here, I'm guessing around noon or 1 o'clock. And then it goes over to the House, and that's where things get a little interesting because, as we know, Schumer and Pelosi have stuffed their House version of this bill with 1,404 pages of bullshit that is not necessary, but contains all of their pork barrel pet projects that they need to insert into this bill like a Trojan horse in order to get it passed because people are desperate. The Republicans are desperate. So why not take advantage of a great crisis? That's the thinking that these good little commies have. That's why they held up the bill the last 2 days. Now, there are some provisions in there I do agree with, even though they would be considered left-wing, even progressive positions. I do think that there needs to be an oversight of how this money is used by the companies because obviously they have a track record of not being responsible with government bailout money, as we saw back in 2008. But the good thing is not only is Wall Street getting a bailout here, it is Main Street that is getting a bailout as well. So I think the elites have figured out that, hey, we got to help Main Street out as well. We can't just leave them behind because we lost a lot of insider people through votes and elections that we really wanted to keep in office so we could continue to make money. Now we have all these people that actually stand on principle. We can't have people like that in Congress, right? So anyway, like I said, it's 10:32. We'll see how the vote goes. I'll have another update for you coming up here in about an hour and a half, hopefully when they do make this vote. In the meantime, enjoy this video by Tim Pool discussing the deal that they reached last night. And I might cut in and have some comments, or I might just play the video. We'll see how it goes. Keep it tuned right here to N3 Radio, because you're listening to Don't Tread on Me with your co-host, Beachball29.
And now the Democrats and Republicans have agreed on a stimulus package. We have a deal, ladies and gentlemen. And later today, they're expected to vote on this, where it will then pass to the House. But Nancy Pelosi has her own bill, so we'll see what happens. Vox.com says perhaps the House Democrats will just take up the bill from the Senate, push it through. However, it's entirely possible they don't. We also have the problem of remote voting, because apparently several lawmakers are working remotely, and there's some concerns about whether it's even constitutional to do so.
Which is funny, actually, because if you think about it, the Democrats have been pushing for digital voting from home, as well as, same-day registration. That was one of the things that was actually included in that 1,404 bill monstrosity that Pelosi put forward. So it also brings up, an interesting question about the validity and the constitutionality of having to vote from home, which, while I think would be convenient and would increase the number of people voting, it also increases the potential for people to vote illegally. And I think that if citizens aren't allowed to vote from home, then Congress people, with the amount of money they're being paid, should get off their butts, Republican and Democrat, independent, doesn't matter. Get off your butts, get into Washington, and get this bill signed and get it done. Stop putting pork in it. Stop taking this opportunity to stuff your pet projects in it. We need our money, and we want it now.
But before we get into all that, I think everyone's dying to know what is in this package and what you're going to get. And here's the frustrating thing. They blocked this twice, and this bill is essentially the same thing. It's the Republicans' bill, not the Democrats' bill. We all saw what Pelosi was offering up. 1,400 pages, weird voting provisions, racial equity nonsense. Whatever that bill was, it's still there. That's in the House. This bill is going to do what everyone expected it to do already, $1,200 to most Americans. They didn't change a lot of the provisions as to how you will receive money. So I think it's fair to point out the Democrats wanted some checks on corporations so they could track where the money went, things like that. But let's just read the story. This is from Vox, and we have some other updates. Trump wants to get the economy reopened by Easter. We'll see if that happens.
So basically what happened is they've been holding out the last 2 days hoping that their allies in the media, which is just the Democrat Party propaganda machine, would force people to see that this was a Republicans trying to pull a fast one and giving money to corporations and not to people, which was not true. And what the Democrats, I don't think, realize, and I don't think the people in the media realize, is their power is gone. The power that they used to have to influence over us is gone, and people could go on the internet and find out what's happening. So their plan failed to try and pressure the Republicans to include all this pork barrel stuff in the bill. So they held out for 2 days for nothing. So when you go to the voting booth in November, remember that the Democrats held up your check for 2 days for no good reason.
Vox.com reports Senate Democrats have reached a deal with the Trump White House and Senate Republicans on a massive $2 trillion stimulus package that is targeting relief towards America's workers, hospitals, industries, and state and local governments.
Now remember, this article is from Vox, a left-wing publication. So take whatever is in here with a grain of salt, and also use your powers of deduction, your higher learning skills to spot the propaganda, if you can, where it's in the story. But there have been so many shakeups recently with left-wing media. They've been, laying off people left and right. I think there's some self-reflection going on in some areas of the left-wing media. Vox, I don't trust as far as I could throw them. I'd rather, take a drink from Bill Cosby. But at the same time, there are grains of truth starting to appear in left-wing media, although they'll use that little grain of truth and spin it to point to their narrative. However, I think this is a pretty, as far as Vox goes, a pretty straightforward article by them. But we'll see later on in this story where they, start slipping in the propaganda. And Tim points it out very astutely. I hope I'm using that word correctly. If I'm misusing my metaphors or my similes or my descriptions, oh well, it's just a show. It's just a ride, as Bill Hicks says. Okay, here's more Tim.
At last, we have a deal, says Mitch McConnell. Early Wednesday morning. Yeah, it was like 1 a.m. when this got done. After days of intense discussions, the Senate has reached a bipartisan agreement on a historic relief package for this pandemic. Though the preceding days had been filled with tense negotiations that occasionally erupted into public shouting matches on the Senate floor, lawmakers worked relatively quickly for Congress as they responded to an unprecedented economic crisis caused by the pandemic. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and White House Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin met 6 times on Monday alone, working until the early hours of the morning on Tuesday to hammer out a deal. In a statement, Schumer said he was pleased with the result. Rather than accept such a fundamentally flawed partisan bill, Senate Democrats have been working hard on a bipartisan bill with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and President Trump, Schumer said. I am pleased to report that our hard work has paid off. The final product is so large, in part because it contains both Republican and Democratic proposals. $500 billion in federal funding for big businesses and municipalities hit hard by the coronavirus outbreak, as well as a direct one-time cash payment to Americans and 4 months of expanded unemployment insurance.
Now, normally I'd be against some kind of payout to us right now because basically what we're doing is borrowing against the future again. But for once, the American people are going to be getting the check instead of just Wall Street like it happened in 2008. And I blame both Republicans and Democrats for that, but mostly, the globalist Democrat and Republicans who just wanted to save the banks and didn't give a toss about us, as the Brits like to say. Anyway, back to Tim Pool.
Schumer, the lead Democrat negotiating, appeared on the Senate floor early Tuesday afternoon to announce Democrats were closer to a deal after securing several key provisions, including expanded unemployment insurance for laid-off workers and oversight on that $500 billion loan program for businesses. Last night, I thought we were on the 5-yard line. Right now, we're on the 2, Schumer said. At this point, of the few outstanding issues, I don't see anyone that can't be overcome with the next few hours. So this is good. I'm happy to see that at least the negotiations in the Senate seem to make sense. The Democrats did want some changes. They got those changes, but the bill for the most part is kind of the same thing. Now, that's contrary to what Pelosi is offering up, which is just absolutely absurd and an important point to be made. How do you just snap your fingers and pull out a 1,400-page bill? Like, they've been working on this thing for a long time. They've been planning this. But this is the Senate. We'll see what happens, they say. Now that a deal has been reached, McConnell will likely move quickly to get that bill on the floor and passed Wednesday.
And I'm so glad Tim Pool pointed that out and figured that out. And I hope you were paying attention. There is no way that the Democrats put together this 1,404-page monstrosity of a bill filled with Green Deal pet projects and diversity bullshit that, they've had this in their back pocket waiting for the right time to pull it out. And they pulled it out of their ass this time. Always putting themselves first and all their pet projects first instead of the American people. Now that the American people need them, where are the Democrats? Trying to put together a Trojan horse.
McConnell spent the beginning of the week signaling impatience and frustration with Senate Democrats, whom he blamed for unnecessarily holding up the process after they shot down 2 procedural votes to move the bill forward. Remember, it was the Democrats who did that. Meanwhile, the Democrats blamed McConnell for cutting them out of the beginning of the bill drafting process and not bringing them in until Republicans had put forward their opening bid.
You're darn right we left them out because who knows what kind of stuff they would have put in at the beginning. Probably stuff more would have to do with Russiagate or Ukrainegate or Stormy Daniels or the president's a poopy mouth or we got to impeach him. That's right, we cut them out at the beginning because we wouldn't have gotten anything done if we hadn't cut them out. Now, grant you, the Republican bill probably isn't perfect, but let it pass and let the people decide if it's good or not. And they can vote the Republicans out if they don't think that it's a great bill, and they can vote all the Democrats they want in and have socialism and have their cake and eat it too. Well, not exactly.
By Tuesday afternoon, both Democratic leaders and McConnell had struck a more conciliatory tone, appearing on multiple television shows this morning and afternoon after releasing releasing her own $2.5 trillion bill. Nancy Pelosi said she was confident a deal could be struck in the Senate, and McConnell echoed the same sentiment. Today, the Senate can get back on track. Today, we can make all of the Washington drama fade away, McConnell said. If we act today, what Americans will remember and what history will record is that the Senate did the right thing. Well, I'll be honest. History is going to record that they bickered and wasted time. But you know what? Fine. Can we get this over with? Now that a deal has been reached, the Senate will likely move with urgency to get it across the finish line with a vote. Then it must still clear the House, where Democrats have been discussing passing the bill by unanimous consent, both to expedite the bill's passage and to protect members by keeping them at home. That sounds like a good idea to me. There is still a ways to go until the bill lands on President Donald Trump's desk, ready to be signed, but the biggest hurdle has now been cleared. What the plan includes. So we'll go through this one fairly quickly because I do want to talk about some major economic issues. Waffle House, for instance, is closing down several hundred locations. People are freaking out, but I don't think you need to freak out. We'll get to it.
Waffle House's closing is a big deal. If you don't live in the South, Waffle Houses are a staple on almost every corner. And that's going to affect a lot of people. And I think the reason why Democrats and Republicans started working together on this is because they saw what people were saying online, what people were saying in the real world. They probably got some very angry calls saying, get this deal done. I'm hoping that people saw that the Democrats were the ones that were holding this up. Like I said, we should have passed the bill as is, and if it was flawed and if it didn't work, then you could blame the Republicans and vote them out. But everybody in November is going to remember who held up this bill. We need the money.
They say a $500 billion loan program for businesses, the biggest sticking point between Democrats and Republicans, was $500 billion in emergency loans for large businesses and municipalities grappling with the coronavirus outbreak. For instance, $50 billion of that money was allotted to passenger airlines. Rather than trying to negotiate that figure down, Democrats instead negotiated to have strings attached to it. Instead of giving the Trump administration broad discretion to make the loans, Schumer and Pelosi said there will likely be a new inspector general in the Treasury Department to oversee these funds, as well as a congressional oversight panel to examine how the money is being used. Schumer's office also announced they secured a provision that will prohibit businesses controlled by the president, vice president, members of Congress, and heads of executive departments from receiving loans or investments from Treasury programs. The children, spouses, or in-laws of lawmakers and executive officials also cannot receive these loans. I actually agree with that. That sounds great. A slew of additional conditions championed by progressives and supported by the public. I love how Vox just injects that, supported by the public, including a requirement for companies to implement a $15 minimum wage, have not made it into the final legislation. Good. Why were we being held up for that?
Once again, thank you, Tim, for pointing that out. Vox, what people? Supported by what people? Where's your, statistics to back this up? No, you're just making conjecture. So even though this has been actually pretty even-handed as far as, laying blame and pointing out facts for a Vox article, they just can't resist, can't they? And Tim also points out, why is this being held up for something that has proven not to be successful? That has actually cost jobs wherever it's been implemented. I'm talking about the $15 minimum wage. Now, I agree, as a person that was earning minimum wage, that is not a wage that you can live on. However, you can't force people just to go from whatever the minimum wage is now in that state to all of a sudden $15 an hour. It doesn't work that way. It should be done gradually. However, I also think that the minimum wage should be just done away with entirely. That way, the free market dictates what everyone is paid.
I like, what did Mark Cuban say? Stop kissing the butts of progressives, Schumer. And then he told McConnell to stop, sucking up to corporate. I think that's what he did. Expanded funds for hospitals, medical equipment, and healthcare worker protections. In a statement, Schumer reported to Senate Democrats that the latest bill will contain $150 billion for hospitals treating coronavirus patients. Of that money, $100 billion will go to hospitals. $1 billion will go to the Indian Health Service, and the remainder will be used to increase medical equipment capacity. Increased aid to state and local governments. Schumer also said about $150 billion of federal money would be allocated for state and local governments who are dealing with the impacts of the crisis, including $8 billion for tribal governments. Direct payments to adults below a certain income threshold. They said this will include a one-time $1,200 check that would be sent to most adults making $75,000 or less annually, according to past tax returns. I believe this is 2018. Now, there are some problems with this, but I think it's fair to say, look, man, this is being rushed through and everyone's kind of speeding through things. I think we can always come back and revisit if the Senate can pull it off. I don't know. I think it's better to get checks into the hands of Americans now as opposed to waiting and trying to figure out what the next payment's going to be or trying to plan for this long-term thing. They say a $500 payment would also be sent to cover every child in qualifying households. The final policy marks a significant change from the direct payments initially posed by Republicans, which would have given less to many individuals who do not have taxable income. It would have been $600. It now includes the majority of adults who are under the $75,000 threshold and phases the payment out as people's income rises. Loans to small businesses, there would be $367 billion in the bill aimed at providing loans for small businesses, which is great. Look, I can't tell you if, what the dollar number is. All I can say is I'm glad that we're actually getting through this. Now, here's where it gets worrisome to me. Over the past couple of days, we have seen the Democrats hold this bill up. And their argument is that, they wanted to make a bunch of changes. It was over a week of negotiations. Finally, the Republicans came out Nancy Pelosi dives back in from her holiday, her recess, and then all of a sudden the bill gets dropped and we end up being delayed by basically 2 days. Now the challenge is, if this goes to the House, we're just, our fingers are crossed that the Democrats are going to be on board with this. I think they will. I think at this point, at least I'm hoping they will. We don't see an attempt at this ridiculous 1,400-page garbled nonsense, and we just get this one through. I am not an economist who can tell you what people need. What I do know is that people need to get some kind of relief, and we need to do it fast. We can always have we can put this in place and then, sort of assess things. Once we get people emergency relief, we can sit down and then have some extra time to work out where we go from here. Donald Trump is saying he wants to have everything reopened by Easter, so maybe we don't need that much. Maybe we don't need another bill. We probably will. We'll see what happens, but let's read. The Senate still needs to approve the deal in a vote, when 60 lawmakers will have to vote in favor of it to pass. That will happen Wednesday, McConnell told reporters. I'm willing to bet it's like everybody votes for it except for Rand Paul. Oh, no, Rand Paul's out. Maybe he'll be unanimous. And I'm not saying that to drag Rand Paul. He like his dad, they like to vote no on things. The package will then head over to the House, where Democrats also have their own $2.5 trillion stimulus bill, which Pelosi unveiled on Monday. In order to proceed expeditiously, it's quite possible the House will simply take up the Senate deal, rather than going to conference to hash out differences between the two chambers. If so, its next challenge will be figuring out how best to vote on it. Given the fact that many House members are currently working remotely, there's a possibility the lawmakers approve the legislation via a process known as unanimous consent, when a bill is able to pass as long as no one objects to it, even if most members aren't physically present. House Rules Chair Jim McGovern has urged his colleagues to consider unanimous consent or voice voting with the members who are present instead of remote voting. If lawmakers were to go the unanimous route, that means a single lawmaker who's physically present could object to the bill's passage and potentially delay proceedings even further,
while grandstanding and simultaneously losing their mind and their political career. Oh, I dare anyone, Republican or Democrat, in the House to stand up and say no to this bill, unless it's filled with Green Deal, liberal, diversified bullshit pork in it. I hope this does not go to committee. And if you don't know what that means when a House and Senate bill are basically covering the same thing and they have major differences, it goes to committee where it's hashed out, things are taken out, things are added in. Look, I know and I admit that because this is a democracy and a republic, that it's going to be nobody gets exactly what they want, but I just wonder why it just seems that the Republicans always have to give up stuff that is essential for Democrat big government BS. I just don't understand that. But like I said, we need the money and we need it now. I need the money and I need it now. That's how bad it is. I'm sure you need it out there too.
How they say they're going to say it's possible another lawmaker could voice this type of opposition again, though they would likely face immense pressure from both the public and their colleagues not to do so. Despite this scenario, remote voting isn't being considered. But they do point out one of the concerns raised is remote voting contradicts policies that have been laid out in the Constitution regarding how Congress should convene in person. Some lawmakers have worried, too, that it could set a concerning precedent for other votes that take place down the line. While the possibility could pick up momentum if it appears necessary in the weeks to come, it's not expected to happen this week with the stimulus bill. I'm very, very happy to hear this. I have friends who are worried. I'm sure many of you are worried. And this is going to get a cash check in everyone's hands. So you know what? For all of the all the bickerings and all of the absurdity, especially with Pelosi's bill, we're a couple days behind. But hey, many of you will potentially get more than $600. So at this point, I'm going to say, okay, fine. Bygones be bygones. Get it done. Get it passed. Please, Democrats in the House, just get this through. The American people need it. We can't wait. After this bill goes through, how about we work on another longer term package and you can propose whatever you want when we have time to sit down and negotiate these things. Donald Trump is certainly in a serious rush to get things restarted. And you got to understand, it's very, very serious. Look, Waffle House has shut down about 367 locations. They said that 365 locations are shut down amid the pandemic. We don't know if necessarily it's because of the pandemic, but it's likely because it may have been that Waffle House was already hurting at some locations.
Braxton was diagnosed with choroid plexus carcinoma, a brain tumor.
The point is, at a certain point, when the economy stops, it does not come back. And that's what's truly terrifying. So Trump is right to be concerned. Now you're seeing all of these people on social media saying things like, nobody would give their life to stimulate the economy. No. What you don't understand, these memes are really stupid. If the economy doesn't kick back on, you will see as many or more lives lost. That's what we're trying to balance. Donald Trump isn't simply saying we need corporate profits, so we're going to let people die. No, he's saying that if we don't get the economy back on track, people will die anyway. We got to find out where our breaking point is. So Trump sets Easter goal for reopening American economy. Now, many people are saying, no way, don't do it. The problem is many of these people are just anti-Trump. So you do have health experts. Dr. Fauci says, let's be flexible, see how things play out. I think that's smart. We'll see. But I also think it's important to have a date set. That is very, very important. Trump saying Easter, good. It doesn't mean we do it, and maybe we shouldn't. But people need certainty. So we have two really good things right now. First, certainty in the stimulus package, at least as much as we can have. With the Republicans and the Democrats now coming together on this, many people are confident that we might start moving forward. And that's why we saw one of the biggest market rallies yesterday. Now with Donald Trump saying we have our eyes on a goal, people can start feeling confident in investing back in the economy if we have a potential date set. The biggest threat to our economy right now while we're in stasis is, well, beyond the stasis, it's that we don't know what's going to happen. So people are not willing to bet and invest in our economy because they're like, I don't know how long it's going to take.
You also have liberal outlets saying that the president shouldn't be on TV. He's peddling lies. No, he's peddling hope. He's giving us a date that we're trying to shoot for. If Obama was doing this, the press would be getting down on their knees, doing you know what, just singing praises to Obama, saying he's giving us hope. He's leading. I think Trump is doing a great job considering that no one saw this coming. He did what he did in late January, I should say, closing down the borders, which he was called a xenophobe for, which the liberal media said that he was overreacting to, that this was just the flu. And as soon as it turned serious, they said he's not doing enough. The man can do no right in their eyes, and that's why they are totally illegitimate.
Trump set a goal. It's not a guarantee, but at least it lets people know we have our eyes on getting things rolling again. If people are out of work, they leave their towns. There are people fleeing cities, and they've been doing it for a long time, and this is making it worse. As an aside, I'm really curious how this is going to affect the 2020 census. This is going to be nuts with people fleeing big cities. But if someone leaves a city, they might not come back. I mean, this is what happens. You give someone a reason to leave for a month or two, and they set up roots in a different place. And if somebody leaves a big city and finds work or finds stability back home or in a suburb, they'll stay. They won't want to, uproot again. It's stressful enough to have to leave the city because you got laid off. And many companies, they're going to see their products spoil. The restaurant industry, for instance, bars, they're going to have to reopen. They're going to need more than loans. So we're probably going to need another big stimulus boost. And this is us borrowing from ourselves in the future, which can get really, really murky. Inflation, other really bad things. Look, we're facing major economic damage. So we got to do something. Even if in the long term it hurts us, it's better than killing the economy, right? A hurt economy is better than a dead one. NPR reports in his Tuesday afternoon briefing with the coronavirus task force, President Trump couched earlier comments about the need to reopen the U.S. economy within weeks, emphasizing that the decision would ultimately be data-driven and made in consultation with public health experts. You see how simple it is? Thank you, NPR. Yet when you go to Reddit and when you go on Twitter, they're all screeching, Trump only cared because, his golf course started losing money and things like that. You literally said it's going to be data-driven and in consultation with public health experts. What more do you want? A permanent shutdown? Like no negotiation, no discussions forever? The president said he still wants Americans working again by Easter Sunday. something he first said during a virtual town hall with Fox News earlier in the day. But he was much more circumspect over whether that would be possible from a medical standpoint. His previous comments about reopening the economy prompted alarm among public health experts across the country who said it's far too early. Trump seemed to much more carefully toe the line during his briefing as he talked about carefully and responsibly reopening the country. I want to assure Americans that we have a team of public health experts, also economists and other professionals, working to develop a sophisticated plan to reopen the economy as soon as the time is right. One based on the best science, the best modeling, and the best medical research there is anywhere on Earth. Trump stressed that this is a medical crisis. This isn't a financial crisis. And he's right. Once we get through the coronavirus pandemic, people should be able to get back to work right away. But what a lot of people don't understand, because they're too obsessed with screeching about the orange man, is that the plan to reopen the economy isn't like you snap your fingers and just dump everybody into the middle of the city. It's that you slowly start reintroducing non-essential businesses back into to service. So we had this slow downturn where at first they were saying no more than 50 people in a store. Then they shut the stores down. You know, at first they were like, we'll give you hand sanitizer. Then they were like, can't have more than 50 people. Then they close. We can do something similar to slowly reopen things. There's also other ideas about making sure the vulnerable, immunocompromised people and the elderly remain isolated for a longer duration.
And this brings up an important point real quick. If you have neighbors, if you know a neighbor who is elderly, and you know for a fact that you do not have it, no sniffles, no sign of any kind of infection due to the coronavirus or even the flu or the cold, check in on your neighbors. There is a lot of people in this country who live alone, don't have any friends, don't have any family, have no one to check on them. Do your part. Be a true American. Check your fellow neighbor. We all screwed up and went out to the stores and bought toilet paper and food and everything and started hoarding stuff. Not us, but I mean, I'm just talking about Americans in general. So we already failed that test. So at least we can try to make it up and check in on our neighbor. And hey, if you've got like 10 packages of toilet paper and your neighbor has none, I don't think you'll hurt yourself if you give them one pack of toilet paper. Or just help out your neighbor with food or something. That's the best thing that you could do during this crisis. That's the one thing I think that'll keep America going. Now, Abraham Lincoln said that if America is to be destroyed, we ourselves have to be the author. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But I think as long as Americans, when the chips are down, regardless if you're Democrat, Republican, left or right, up or down, gay or straight, Muslim or Jewish or Christian or atheist, when the chips are down, when a crisis is happening, such as it is now, if you put all that aside and help out your fellow man, I think America will go on forever. And we have to keep it that way. Here's more Tim Pool.
But younger people can slowly start coming back out into the workforce. This is it's mind-numbingly frustrating to me that people view this as an all or one thing. It's my biggest gripe with how the Democrats have approached the negotiating on the bill, blocking it twice, and then Nancy Pelosi saying, we got this big laundry list of a bunch of nonsense we want to shove in here because it's all or nothing. No, it isn't. So I'm glad that we're seeing the Democrats. Good on them. I like the changes that were made. I got to admit, it's good stuff. Oversight is good. We'll see the full language of the bill. Maybe we'll be upset with it. But for now, if we're going to get more money to the hands of the lower income people, we're going to get some oversight in corporations. Okay, fine. I'm happy with that. I would have preferred to have moved more expeditiously. But hey, we're a couple days behind. Fine. Let's move forward on this one. I'm not going to keep slinging beef at the Democrats over this. We're ready to go. I'm hoping they don't block this in the House. Fine, whatever. But let's get things rolling again. I'll leave it there. We have a lot going on, and one of the biggest risks that I'm seeing from this, in my view, it's not so much the economy, not even the coronavirus, but in this crisis, we're seeing a rise in government authority and authoritarianism that is downright frightening. We're seeing California's going to launch a couple drones to check to see whether or not people are violating quarantine or curfew. A couple people in New Jersey have been arrested for having get-togethers. We're getting a dangerous territory. Let's pull this one back. It's getting freaky.
And Tim brings up a great point. And for those libertarian-minded people who follow Rand and Ron Paul, it brings up a great point about the Fourth and Fifth Amendments being trampled over because of the coronavirus. We should all, left and right, up and down, like I said before, we should all be concerned about the government, using illegal means to keep us in check, and all those should go away once the coronavirus goes away. However, I also think, and I heard this from our neighbor, that I think this coronavirus is a good dry run for whatever might be coming our way next time, because it could be worse. It could be the plague, it could be hantavirus, it could be Lassa virus, it could be Ebola. And when it's one of those viruses that does not play around, that our society is not ready for, I think this was a dry run, and I think we'll be a lot more prepared next time. And when it does happen, I hope all of us will not hoard stuff and leave some stuff for our fellow citizens. But I wanted to get into Anthony Brian Logan's video while we're waiting to see if this bill passes. It's about 11:30 now. I'm guessing they're going to vote on this around noon or 1. So I'm going to play this video from Anthony Brian Logan. No commentary during this video, just be him by himself. Check out his channel on YouTube. He's going to be talking more about his title is actually Are Americans' Constitutional Rights Being Eroded Through Virus Hysteria? And that's the key to this video, I think, the hysteria that's surrounding the coronavirus. There's a lot of people out there, people who are in power, who want power, that are using this crisis to try and gain power. And I think we should avoid and mark these people at all costs. The people that we should cling to and look up to are the people that are offering help out of their own free will, especially millionaires just offering money, giving pay raises to their workers, or if it's just somebody down the street helping out with a neighbor with their food. There's certain stuff that you could do, as I mentioned before, to help out during this coronavirus, help not spread the virus if you can by washing your hands and doing everything that you need to. Let's pull together on this. Anyway, here's Anthony Brian Logan, his video. I think it's about just over 11 minutes long. Him talking about Americans' constitutional rights being eroded during virus hysteria. Keep it tuned right here to N3 Radio, because you're listening to Don't Tread on Me with your co-host, Beachball29, in for Mad Dog.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and speaking of liberty, are we going to talk about how this whole virus kerfuffle is taking away our rights every single day? Rights that are given to us, that are written in stone in the Constitution, freedom of assembly, right to bear arms. These rights are being totally eroded away, and it seems like people aren't really putting up much of a fight, and they're not saying too much about it at all. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because I've seen just way too many incidents of it. And at a certain point, when you see a pattern developing, maybe there is a purposeful agenda behind it. Let's talk about LA right quick. This is probably the most egregious example, and then I get into some other things. Now, the article I saw this morning says that if you are deemed as quote unquote non-essential business and you refuse to close during this whole quarantine thing because of the virus, they can shut your power and your water off. I think that was in LA. I don't know about the rest of California, but in LA, that's what they're doing. Now, the question is, what businesses are deemed as essential and which ones are deemed as non-essential? For some reason, a weed dispensary is deemed as essential. So you can still go smoke your weed, get high, smoke your drugs or whatever, and that's fine during the whole outbreak. No problem with that. You could probably still be on the street and smoke crack for a living or shoot heroin for a living. That's a different story, and I'll move on. The point is that your drugs aren't really being slowed up. That's not really your problem. But the gun stores are being closed, deemed as non-essential. Now, I don't understand how that makes any sense at all. I have the right to bear arms, yes? So why would you forcibly close by shutting off the power and the water and with police enforcement when you're talking about a gun store? Okay. Luckily, I'm in the place where that's not happening. I'm in the South and I already got my guns and my ammo already. So I'm straight. But what if you're in LA and things are getting hectic? People are losing their jobs, because that's another part of this whole thing. You have no right to, pursue happiness, pursue employment anymore. Your job you go to, that you depend upon, that you rely upon to help you pay your bills and pay for yourself, pay for your kids, pay for your family, is shut down by order of the government locally, not the federal government, but the government locally. The federal government is giving suggestions, guidelines, but they're not saying you can't be open, you must shut down. That is the local government in many of these states. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. Some places, as far as like restaurants, you can have it open as far as carry out, but you can't have the dining room open. Now, some places have totally closed down these spots. And it's really ridiculous because you got a right to be able to eat. You can go to a grocery store, you can go to Walmart, where there's a lot of people at one time, way more than 10 people in one area in Walmart or a grocery store or a bank. But I can't go to a gun store to get a thing I actually need. You know, when somebody may ask me, hey, ABO, what would you need in the zombie apocalypse? What would you need if you want to be a prepper? I'm not a prepper. I'm not, into that much. I like to be, especially right now, but I know a little bit of something. What I would want is food, water, guns, ammunition. Those are the main things I need. I can survive on that. And of course, shelter, but guns, food, ammo, that's what I need. Water as well. But all of a sudden, because the government says I can't go there in Los Angeles, California, then I'm pretty much out of luck. I think that's just totally a violation of my rights. This whole thing is a violation of our rights. We got to stay home. We can't go to work. They have agreed on the stimulus package, at least for now. It's been agreed upon in the White House, of course, and the Senate. It still must go to the House, where you got to get past the wicked witch of Washington, D.C., Nancy Pelosi, but I'll move on. It still has to go there and get approved. But as of right now, it has been approved. You get a check for $1,200 as an individual on a one-time basis as a, one-off. You may get more, but for right now, it's a one-off. People have totally lost their jobs, lost their businesses, due in large part to government mandate. Some of it is because people are scared. They don't want to go outside. They don't want to catch the bug. But some of it is because the government has forced people to close down. Now, they're going to give out small business loans and stuff like that. But a loan, why not just let me go out here and make my money and not shut me down? I understand the concern. People are scared about the virus. I get it. But at a certain point, it's like, when does the governments want to reduce the population that are infected by the virus interfere with my rights as a citizen in America? Okay. And how long are we going to prolong this whole thing? And how many more rights are going to be taken away? I feel like we're under martial law. The food shortages. When you go to the grocery store, you got limits on what you can buy. And there's certain things that you can't buy because the shelves are empty. I feel like if you want socialism, if you wanted to really see how it would be in the United States, you want to try it here and see if we do it better. Okay, you get a nice little preview right now. You get in the preview. Now, some are going to say, oh, that's not right, ABL. We're under an emergency. We can't go out there and work. Well, what do you think will happen when you have socialism and the taxes go through the roof? Okay, you're not going to have certain things be available to you. What you're getting right now is a preview of what's going to be going on. When you're under socialism in a big country like this and you're trying to have everything be equitable, what's going to happen is you're going to have higher unemployment. You're going to have food shortages, water shortages. You're going to have general shortages. You may have more crime. And to reduce the crime, you're going to have martial law, curfew, the whole 9 yards. It's been done before. This ain't nothing new. USSR, China, Cambodia. I mean, the list goes on. We've seen it over and over and over. Germany, the same things have happened all throughout history. So I don't think we really want that here. Now, am I going to say that this disaster relief package is socialism? No, because we've had a thing that happened that we can't really control as far as a disease. But I will say that some of these draconian measures to try and enforce things to prevent the virus from spreading are getting on the lines of socialism and communism. I don't want so much control from the government. The government's job should be to protect me, not to enslave me or imprison me when I've done no wrong. Okay, if you're living in a civil society and you break laws, I get it. I understand there's punishment for that. But if I'm a law-abiding citizen, if I'm not engaging in any kind of mischievous actions, then I shouldn't be treated as such. You know, people say, oh, China had the best model. They did great with the CCP bug outbreak. Well, what they were doing was literally welding people inside of their home. They put a metal bar up in front of your door and welded it shut so you couldn't get out. Okay, the most you can do was just crack it a little bit to get some fresh air in, but you couldn't even get out your house. And then some who may have been actually sick were forcibly taken from their homes and then brought to a quote unquote camp or a hospital. And by the way, that quote unquote hospital they built very quickly. If you looked inside, it appeared to be a penitentiary. They got the food tray in the front. You could not open the door from the inside. You know, it seems like it was a penitentiary, but I'll move on. My whole point is that socialism, communism, control of people, that goes against our rights as Americans. I don't know about you, but I'm not really with giving up all my rights. You give me suggestions how to protect myself. Okay, I'm with it. I'll hear your suggestions, but don't tell me that I can't operate business anymore. Don't tell me I can't make money. And then on top of that, you want to enforce these things by cutting off my power, cutting off my water, maybe even locking me up, giving me a ticket. I don't like it. Hopefully we get beyond this whole thing sooner than later. And I don't want to see any kind of holdovers on this particular point in time. Okay. This is not the new normal as many people will try to say. No, it's not. It's a temporary. It's just like if you have a hurricane that hits or a tornado that hits, you have damage, you clean up the damage and get back to normal life. That's what we're going to do coming up here pretty soon. Like I said, hopefully sooner than later. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you think that our rights are being taken away as a result of this virus? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. Or are our rights not being taken away? Is everything that's fine? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. I think what's happening here is that some people are not letting a good tragedy go to waste. They want to use this whole virus situation to push forward their particular narrative. We saw that with the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, talking about, your bill's bad. It has corporate bailouts in it. I want diversity quotas in corporate settings. I want Green New Deal. I want $30 million at the Kennedy Center. I want this. I want that. I want airplanes with zero emissions, ridiculous, retarded stuff. We don't need any more of that. All we got to do right now is get through this whole virus thing. Let the flatten the curve or whatever other dumb thing they want to say, get past that and get back to normal life and not have any of our rights taken away.
This episode of Don't Tread on Me is sponsored by Perky's Paperbacks. Check them out.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rain.
You shall not pass!
Turn to a world of intrigue, mystery, and adventure with Perky'sPaperbacks.com with the best in paperback books.
The Jazzlands, only here on N3 Radio. RC brings you the best in past and present jazz music. Live, Wednesday, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, only here on N3Radio.com.
Welcome back to this episode of Don't Tread on Me, Beach Ball 29 in for Mad Dog. And while we're all worried and talking about the COVID-19, which stands for Chinese virus, the C stands for China, I'd like to make that point clear to the liberal media who seems to think that calling it the Chinese or the Wuhan virus is somehow racial, yet, we have the Spanish flu, the MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. This came from China. Let's not forget that this was China's fault. If China was more concerned about making sure that nobody gets this illness instead of making sure the party doesn't look bad, I think a lot of heartache would have been saved. But this happened for a reason. It's here. Let's try to take care of it, and then we'll blame China later. I've got some video later on with Tucker Carlson talking about that. I'll see if I'll comment during the video or just play the video. It depends on how I feel. But let's not forget what's actually also happening during this time that most of us have forgotten, because I think it's a foregone conclusion, but we do have a presidential, race going on and an election that's going to happen in November. Despite what the liberal media says, if Trump was ever going to use a time to consolidate power and make it into a dictatorship, don't you think he would have done it by now, especially during this coronavirus? But they're talking about, he's going to suspend the election. He's going to be president forever. No. It's just the fact that you put sleepy, creepy Joe Biden up against him. And what is Biden doing lately? Well, he's trying to appear presidential, but he's appearing more and more like a person that belongs in the old folks' home. I'm sorry to say, it was funny at first. It was really funny at first to have Joe doing his gaffes, and it's just old Joe. He's just gaffing again. But now we're getting serious. This man has no idea where he is. This man has no idea where he is, what he's doing, and he was pushed into this race by a lot of people who saw that there was nobody that could beat Donald Trump, and they thought that because Joe has these connections, I guess, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and he's going to click with, the Pennsylvania voter, I guess. They said, this is our man. We got to get him to be in there so he'll win the votes in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. In other words, the blue wall that Hillary failed to even visit right after the convention in the 2016 election. But, the simple fact of the matter is the man is not all there. He's not going to win. I think everybody knows it. I think he's being put up as a sacrificial lamb, much like John McCain was during the 2008 election. The Republicans knew that he wasn't going to win, and they put him up and said, here. And because of that fact, I also think that Joe's going to choose, like he says, an African-American woman to be his running mate. And he's going to hope that that energizes people, and it will to a certain extent, but I don't think it'll be enough to get people to vote for Biden. Have you seen a Biden sticker? I see Bernie stickers everywhere. I don't see people getting excited for Sleepy Creepy Joe at all. Anyway, here's Mark Dice. He's got more on old Sleepy Joe here. It's just a 5-minute video, so we'll just play it all. Keep it tuned right here to N3 Radio, because you're listening to Don't Tread on Me. Co-host, Beachball29 in for Mad Dog.
If there's one thing these days that is perhaps the least important of all, it's Joe Biden's opinion. So, of course, the major news networks are dedicating some of their precious airtime to him.
I've had, thank God, no symptoms that I'm aware of. Doesn't mean that that can't happen. Excuse me.
You're supposed to cough into your elbow. I don't know, sir. I learned that actually covering your White House.
Actually, that's true. But fortunately, I'm alone in my home. But that's okay.
All right.
I agree. You're right.
You should it's kind of old school to do it with your hand. Do it into your elbow. You're supposed to do it.
Thank you.
Let me ask you.
I know that this may seem like a Saturday Night Live skit, but this was a real interview, and it really happened. Of course, no comedy writer could have possibly come up with such a hilarious skit. It could have only happened spontaneously live on the air.
And your rival, Senator Bernie Sanders is ramping up for the next round of primaries, including in the state of New York.
There's plenty more to come in this video, so stay tuned. But real quick, subscribe to my channel if you're new here, because if this is your first time watching one of my videos, it's obvious this is the coolest channel on all of YouTube, and you'll want to check back here on a regular basis. But old Joe wasn't done yet. Here he is on MSNBC, continuing to pretend that he's the president.
We have never failed to respond to a crisis as a people. And I tell you what, I'm so darn proud. And those poor people who have lost, anyway, it's just, my heart goes out to them.
No. Listen, we're two people in our basements with nothing but time.
What do you think about how the real president is handling the situation, Joe?
I just can't figure the guy. It's like watching a yo-yo. I shouldn't have said it that way. It's like watching.
It feels that way. I want to ask. That's okay. I want to ask you what happens to the Democratic primary, Bernie Sanders.
It's okay, Grandpa. It's almost nap time anyway. Is there anything else you want to say before the nurse comes back?
Why doesn't he just act like a president? That's a stupid way to say it.
You know,
I guess,
Donald
but
Trump
I
was
really
asked on...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, probably best I don't.
Thank you, MSNBC, for bringing us this powerful interview at this important time in our lives. But don't count old Joe out just yet. He also saved time for one of the least important shows on television, The View, where he continued to not make any sense at all.
Are you at all concerned, as Trump said, that we cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself?
We have to take care of the cure. That will make the problem worse no matter what. No matter what. We know what has to be done.
No, I'm sorry. What needs to be done is you need to stop humiliating yourself like this, Joe. Bernie Sanders also continues to play make-believe, doing live streams from his home office in front of a bookshelf that's missing books. I haven't seen such an empty bookshelf since I was flipping through an IKEA catalog. Bernie Sanders has never been happier, however, because Congress is putting together the details on a several trillion-dollar stimulus package where the Federal Reserve is going to create money out of thin air through the magic of inflation. And then we're all just going to get free money like he's been promising for years. In fact, here's an exclusive look inside the Federal Reserve as they're preparing our money as we speak.
You love paper money. I think money should be honest, constitutional, still on the books, gold and silver, legal tender. Why don't we use it?
The key to their success has been to control and manipulate the money system of a nation while letting it appear to be controlled by the government. The net effect is to create money out of nothing, lend it to the government, and then collect interest on it. A rather profitable transaction, to say the least.
Here's people rushing to the bank to collect their new stimulus money. Don't spend it all in one place, guys! As this hilarious Forrest Gump meme perfectly illustrates, and just like that, hashtag not my president became hashtag where's my relief check. Much of this could have been avoided if people didn't live and spend like there's no tomorrow, and instead saved a measly $5 a day for an emergency. The old Aesop fable, The Grasshopper and the Ants, perfectly illustrates the situation where the grasshopper fiddles his life away, living it up, while making fun of the ants who are working and preparing for winter. Then when winter comes, the grasshopper's not prepared, and he almost freezes, and out of the kindness of their hearts, the ants take him in, and they're just having a good old time, and then they nurse him back to health.
All right, looking at the old clock on the wall, it is 2 o'clock as of this recording. We've been recording all morning, checking the news, finding out what's happening with this latest relief bill for the coronavirus. Now, I mentioned earlier that democracy is persuasion, and that when something like this happens, as we know, as Republicans, because we seem to always be giving up the things we want for everything that Democrats want, in hopes of placating them, which it never works because they just want more and more and more. There's some poison in this bill, and we knew that was going to happen because we had to compromise in order to get what we wanted, which is money to the American people. The Republicans, remember, wanted to do that. I do like some of the Democrats' provisions. I do not doubt that. But there is some things in here that we didn't need in this bill that the Democrats wanted in this bill, and they got it so that the Senate could pass this. I saw this great article in the Babylon Bee, which is a satire site, if you don't know already. It said, Senate bill held up for transgendered Native Americans affected by climate change, which is not exactly true, but that was some of the stuff in there. There were provisions for climate change, equal opportunity for transgenders, Native American provisions as well. Stuff that in there that wasn't needed. Now, the Native American stuff I do agree with, actually. They needed some help with their local governments out in New Mexico, the far west, and wherever there might be an Indian reservation. But that's besides the point. Let's read this article from Fox News. That's right. Don't Tread on Me is stepping its game up, actually reading articles now and commenting on videos, not just playing videos anymore. We're stepping up our game here. So this, again, is from Fox News. This was published 37 minutes ago as of 2:09 p.m. on the 25th of March, 2020. Millions for Kennedy Center arts included in Senate coronavirus stimulus package. This is from Tyler Olson of Fox News. The Senate stimulus compromise package aimed at helping Americans cope with the economic woes caused by the coronavirus crisis includes millions for the arts, because, yes, that's exactly what we need, millions going to art projects during this time of need. The inclusion in the Senate bill follows an outcry from conservatives over a host of provisions in the House Democrats' coronavirus proposal earlier this week, which critics said address liberal priorities rather than the coronavirus pandemic. So, in other words, they cut most of that pork out, but they had to leave some in just to get it in there. Now, granted, considering some of the stuff that they wanted to add into the bill, some of the stuff, while unnecessary, and if we have to put it in the bill to get this bill passed, and for it to pass the House, which is also important because, remember, suburban wives went out in the 2018 election and decided to put Democrats in the House. And what did we get from them? Not bills, but just more of the same. Impeachment, Orange Man bad. Let's hope that people remember in November that it was the Democrats who held up this bill in the first place for their pet projects. The appropriations text, continuing, released Wednesday along with the draft bill itself, includes $25 million in funding for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. That is down from the $35 million that was included in the recent Democratic proposed House legislation. Whoop-de-doo, we just saved $10 million. But we're paying $25 million for the John F. Kennedy Center. The Senate bill also provides $75 million to each to the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. That is down from the $300 million for each that was in the House stimulus bill. So, we saved a little bit more money there. If you want to give to those, why don't you do it through charity? I don't understand why the House has to pass that much amount of money for them to save it. I think they'll do just fine on their own. Continuing on in the article, that $25 million for the Kennedy Center is designated to helping the center, quote, prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus domestically or internationally, including deep cleaning and information technology to improve telework capability and for operations and maintenance requirements related to the consequences of coronavirus. No, let's just cut this out. I'll read the whole quote again. Quote, prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus domestically or internationally, including deep cleaning and information technology to improve telework capability. That's all this is for. This is not for deep cleaning. This is for information technology and to improve telework capability, and for operations and maintenance requirements. That's what this is for. And then it goes on and says, related to the consequences of the coronavirus. No, you're just shoving this into the bill so you get what you want. The Senate stimulus package is expected to receive a vote soon in the Senate as soon as Wednesday. Today, the House will then consider the legislation. The Kennedy Center has canceled all of its public events through May 10th due to the coronavirus and has released a variety of digital stage performances and social media posts to tide art lovers over while they are staying at home to comply with a variety of government orders and guidances to reduce the spread of the virus. I think the Kennedy Center, who pays for this? Is this a taxpayer-funded place? It shouldn't be. I think the Kennedy Center, with all the people that it has at its place, all the people showing up, all the performers, I think they could make a nice, tidy sum to keep this place going if that's what you want. I don't think taxpayers should be paying for the Kennedy Center. But that's just my opinion. So we'll see how this vote is going. Let me see if I can find another article here. In the meantime, I'm going to let you enjoy another video. And let's run away. Let's all run away from the coronavirus. Let's all run away from Joe Biden. Let's get into the world of entertainment, because that's what we do here on Don't Tread on Me. We not only cover politics and current events, but the world of entertainment from a conservative libertarian point of view. And we always like to touch on what's going on with Comicsgate in the world of comics, in the world of Star Wars, in the world of Marvel Universe, and the world of movies in general. I think we'll see that some are finally getting it in Hollywood that get woke, go broke is very real. Let's get into what happened when, was it Marvel, DC? I don't know. I don't care anymore. They introduced 2 new characters, Safe Space and Snowflake. I am not joking you. This is the quartering. And this is just from an hour ago. It's titled 150,000 dislikes as comic book shops close forever. This is brought to you by Jeremy from the Quartering. Be sure to like and subscribe to his page and comment. It helps him out. Keep it tuned right here to N3 Radio because you're listening to Don't Tread on Me. Beach Ball 29 in Warm and Gone.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and as things continue to get put on tighter and tighter lockdown, it's becoming clear that there will be certain parts of fandoms, geekdom, hobbydom, that will not survive this or will be so greatly damaged that they'll never appear to be the same again. One of those, to me, is most certainly the comic book industry. What was once considered a feed line for modern cinema has basically been ignored and treated as a pet project by large companies like Marvel and DC, putting aside large budgets for woke trash and the occasional decent Batman book. And after everything is done, it is my prediction that many small comic book shops will never reopen, and most small comic book companies may never reopen. There has been a chain reaction of things that started a few days ago that is going to create a ripple effect that is going to cripple the entire comic book industry. And, you know, they could have done better. They could have prevented this by focusing on good quality books and not the spray and pray technology or the spray and pray mentality that they have been. The write books for Twitter mentality. No, I'm not saying that putting out a new Warriors comic book, some woke single one-shot that looks terrible, is just earth-shatteringly bad. But the problem is you paid 3 or 4 people to work on that. Could you have better spent those resources on a better Superman book, a better Batman book, a better Deadpool book, books that actually sell? Well, of course you could have. Any idiot knows that. And with more and more closures, I'm not sure that the industry will be able to rebound. Just 2 days ago, 34% of the comic book shops in the United States had closed. And that doesn't include the metropolitan areas in Texas, Michigan, Kansas, and Missouri that are not statewide, meaning it was probably close to 50%, and I'm going to guess those numbers are closer to 70, 80, or even 90% right now. The other thing you have to understand about the comic book industry is most of these stores are run by fans. They aren't run by people who expect to make a ton of money. These people rely on a few times a year, a big selling book or a collectible that they'll get exclusive rights to that they might actually make some money that month. For the next several months, these people now won't even have any new books to count on or sell. And on top of that, just think about if you're the struggling comic book owner. And again, I identify this because I know many local game shop owners. Not all of them sell comics, but it's the same mentality. So now, over the next 2-3 months, you're not getting any new books. That's right, Diamond Studios has shut down comic book distribution, as well as DC shutting down comic book distribution. DC Comics printer closes tomorrow. Bleeding Cool is trying to stay on top of the current effects of everything. We've already been told that Diamond Comic Book Distributors is closing its doors to all new product. That means put the pens down, no more work. Through comic books, magazine, toys, games, etc. that they've already received will still be distributed if they can over the following weeks. We've also learned that there will be alternative attempts to distribute to stores that are still open, even from publishers exclusive to Diamond, as Diamond has also stated that stores can sell this week's comic books as is when they receive them. UK stores will have to wait till delivery on Thursday. Well, they're not going to be open. They're on shutdown. A statement from Diamond is expected. We already got that statement later. Diamond Steve Geppi confirms closure. no new comic books after this week. Now, to give you an idea, the ripple effect that this is going to cause means even after these comic book shops are allowed to open back up, you're probably out till if they could open at the end of April, let's say, these comic book shops are done until July, maybe longer. They're not going to have any new books. And you know what? The books that they're going to have in the pipeline, the books that they're going to get to try and bounce back with, books that have almost 150,000 downvotes. Because the new Warriors, that's happening. 150,000 downvotes. And let's see how their Children of the Atom book that they promoted as well, let's see how that's doing. Because I'm sure it's doing amazingly. Let's see, 114,000 views. Let's see, 15,000 downvotes to just 1,000 upvotes. This is what is waiting for struggling comic book store owners when they finally get to reopen. And let me also describe the way that this is going to work. When these stores close down over the next few months, many of them live month to month, just like their employees and the people that shop at these stores. What's going to happen if 80% of your customers can't get a new book for 3 months? Some significant portion of them are going to do what? They're going to find a different hobby. People are going to forget about it. When you are the hardcore every week on pull day going to get your comic books, that's a habit. It's something you habitually do. If you go 2-3 months without going in for your pull list, you become more and more likely to never go back. Then when you combine the fact that we get things like Children of the Atom and new woke warriors coming down the line,
destroy it!
No. You don't even have anything to be interested in right now. You're not waiting on anything. You could talk about Batman's White Knight series, maybe. I mean, maybe there's a few books you're excited about, but then you compound on top of that it's going to be 2-3 months before new books get into the pipeline. This will absolutely be the final death blow for a lot of local comic book shops and a lot of small printers. When you look at even the Hollywood Reporter covering it, quote, "This is the moment we've been dreading. The specialty comic book market is facing something that could, without an appropriate response, prove decimating to the industry as a whole. Quote, we've reached the moment we've all been dreading," said the email. It was Ed Greenberg, the owner of Collector's Paradise, a comic book shop which has 3 stores in the LA area. In a message to his customer base, he was reacting to the mayor shutting the city down. "We've been selling comics for close to 26 years now, and this is truly the first time that we are uncertain about the future of our store, our industry, and our favorite art form." Continue the email, which in many ways summed up the precarious state of the comic book retail industry. Even before everything, comic book shops had been struggling to reinvent themselves as sales slumped. But with social distancing and everything else, without an appropriate response, it will prove decimating to the industry as a whole. Comic book shops were already in the process of adapting this week. When the Hollywood Reporter stopped by LA's Golden Apple Comics on Wednesday, it had curtailed its hours, with staff wearing gloves and sometimes masks. It also limited the amount of people it let in its store and even set up a comic book car hop. But the latest news packed a Thanos-sized punch. As of Friday, all California and New York are under shutdown for non-essential business. Illinois followed suit, and Wisconsin followed suit, and many others have since this article's been written. Quote, "I sent an email to my top 5 suppliers asking if they were going to be offering returnability on the other end of this. I have 3 weeks of orders in the pipeline and 0 ability to sell these books in any meaningful way." Longtime California retailer Brian Hibbs wrote on Facebook at the start of the week ahead of the enforced closure that 2 of his stores, 2 of the 5 ignored me. The other 2 gave me really dark answers, and it's clear they are using each other as excuses. Well, when the ship's sinking, they're going to save themselves. It's probably only 80% of the reassurance I want, but it's something. Oh, I'm sorry. And one only, Image, stepped up and said they're returnable for now. That's just 20%. Guidance from both publishers and central distributor Diamond Comics distributors have been arriving through the week, albeit evolving, often contradictory piecemeal fashion. As Hibbs' note suggests, Image Comics was the first publisher to step up, making all new releases fully returnable for the next 2 months and staggering or canceling some releases. DC, at time of writing, has yet to release its own statement. The Hollywood Reporter reached out to a spokesman and confirmed that the publisher is working on a meaningful plan to help alleviate current stress of the comic book industry, that the communication to retailers is forthcoming. Here's the thing. You're talking about essentially a mega chain, 3 whole stores in the comic book. Most comic book stores are owned by one dude or one chick, and they own one location in the cheapest possible retail space they can find in town. That's how it looks to every comic book shop I've ever seen. These people don't have a hope. By the way, shops looking for relief do have a few options. Last year, the Forge Fund was established to assist retailers in times of need. Additionally, independent publisher Mad Cave Studios on Thursday launched a crowdfunding campaign to assist smaller retailers with the intent to raise at least $100,000 to be shared equally across all retailers asking for financial aid. At the time, it's raised over $10,000, which is nothing. That's not even $1 per retailer. Despite many challenges, many remain optimistic about what lies ahead. Sure, maybe, but the comic book industry hasn't exactly been booming before this. One core problem is that retailers are expected to predict book sales, and then pre-ordering according to their estimates. This means they've already paid for several orders months ahead of time, and as a result, any period of disruption will cause significant cash flow problems. Here's what I can say. If you're loyal to your comic book shop, try to get a hold of them, try to pay over the phone for your books, and maybe have them mail them to you. Say, look, I have a local pub. I think it's no secret that I enjoy a little sip every once in a while. I have a local pub. I called them. They're doing takeout for food, and although I don't know if they can now that Wisconsin's under official lockdown, maybe they still can, but Saturday I called them. I said, I don't care. Charge me whatever fee. I want to support you. And they actually have a GoFundMe for their waitresses and stuff right now. If this stuff goes on for weeks, you're going to see a lot of these small town businesses completely collapse. And that doesn't even matter if there's any kind of stimulus package ever happens. Whoopie-doo, you give everyone $1,000. Yeah, it's great. Please send the money. But it's not going to save comic book shops because what do people spend their money on? Comics. Most smart people. Now, we all have our vices and we all have our times we spend money foolishly, but comics are a luxury item. You're buying food, you're paying rent before you're buying comic books. Again, the ripple effect for this, if everything's only shut down for a few weeks, will close a significant number of comic book shops, and Marvel has done absolutely nothing to help them at this point other than make them extraordinarily sad, and the butt of the joke, nearly 150,000 people have laughed at already.
Beachball 29 in for Mad Dog on this episode of Don't Tread on Me. Getting into the last part of our show. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I hope you like this new format where not just videos are being played, but you'll actually hear my commentary over them. Right now, the time is 2:27. No new news yet on the vote on what's going on in the Senate. As soon as we hear something, I'll come back and give you my commentary, and we'll play probably one more video. I want to really touch in on some of the comments and some of the stuff that celebrities have been doing to show their ineptitude, lack of empathy, and their overall lack of social awareness about what's going on. I suppose it's tough for some of those people to be stuck in their house drinking their red wine, but for some of us who are running out of food, not only us, but our pets are running out of food, it's a different story. So when you try to release a video, Wonder Woman, releasing the Communist Manifesto song Imagine by John Lennon. Ironic that his last name is the same last name of Peter Ilyevich Lenin, however you say that commie name. But anyway, point is, these celebrities are out of touch. Idris Elba saying that humans are the virus, not this virus. What are you, stealing lines from Matrix now? I cannot stand these people. So anyway, we're going to take this quick timeout, this break right here. Keep it tuned right here to N3 Radio's Don't Tread on Me. We'll be right back with the last part of the show. Beach Ball 29 in for men.
Catch a ride on the wave with the best in retro wave music beginning at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday with your host Robert here on N3 Radio and at n3radio.com.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin' Street? Girlin' Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
In the club, rock and roll and bang your head with me. Rock and roll and bang your head with me.
Bang Your Head. DJ Kenny Starr brings you the best mixes of hip-hop and rap just like back in club. Starting every day live, 12 midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific, only here on n3radio.com. Tune in.
Bang your head, just bang your head. I'm in the club rocking out to a guitar.
6 o'clock, Alice. 6 o'clock. And guess who blocked the bill again? That's right, you're not getting your checks because Andrew Cuomo wants more in it. He's not getting enough. Democrats aren't getting enough. They're holding us hostage. I'm going to let Tim talk about it because I'm too angry about it. I'm way too angry about this. I might say something I might regret. I don't do that here on DTOM. Don't tread on me here on N3 Radio. I'm going to leave you with this full clip from Tim Pool telling you exactly what happened this afternoon and what's going on. And I'm going to leave you there as far as this episode of DTOM goes. We'll be back same time next week for another episode of Don't Tread on Me with your co-host Beachball29 in for Mad Dog. And screw you, you wrinkled old crunt, Pelosi. Keep it tuned right here to N3 Radio. Jazzland's coming up next with RC. Have a good week, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the third time, the Democrats are obstructing the emergency stimulus package, and none of this makes any sense because the Democrats and the Republicans actually agreed upon the bill in the Senate in the early hours of this morning. They had already blocked it twice before. The Democrats actually won in their negotiations and got the Republicans to put many of the things they wanted in this bill. And at 1 a.m., it was celebration. We have an agreement. We will move forward. And many expected Nancy Pelosi to expedite this bill, to get it through, because the American people are hurting, businesses are shutting down, and our country is facing dire straits. Yet this morning we learned that Nancy Pelosi decided to hold a pro forma session, meaning they were in for just about a minute. It was a formality. They didn't actually do anything. Pelosi says she's not sure how she'll move forward, and they will reconvene tomorrow. Now, I could understand if there were some things in this bill that are potentially bad. Republicans aren't perfect, neither are Democrats, but hold on. Both parties agreed to this. Why is Pelosi obstructing now? Why can't she just go in and pass this bill? They were talking about unanimous consent, meaning if everyone who's there just agrees on it, it could be pushed through very, very quickly. Vox.com, left-wing media, was saying they expected this, and no, it is being stalled. And now we're hearing again that Andrew Cuomo of New York is urging Pelosi to not pass this bill. I don't know what they expect. Beggars can't be choosers. We are already looking at one of the largest the largest stimulus package in the history of this country. What more do they want? It's an emergency. If the Democrats negotiated this and the rest of them can't come together to pass this bill, we are in serious trouble. But I think what we're seeing is the Democrats completely fractured. They don't even know what they're trying to get at this point, and it's holding the rest of us back. All of this is happening at the same time that Donald Trump's approval rating is through the roof. A recent poll from Gallup showed that Trump's approval rating is tied for the highest it's ever been. And on his handling of the global pandemic, 60% approve. He's winning over independents and Democrats. And I can only imagine that people are starting to see through the lies of the media and the Democrats because, lo and behold, trust in Congress is down. The approval rate for Congress is down. And get this, according to a CBS poll, the American people are more trusting of Trump than they are of the media at this point. And what do we see in response? The media is now shutting down Trump's press conferences. One NPR station said, we will no longer carry it. Many media companies, many media outlets are turning the cameras off before he even finishes. Why? Because when the American people heard what he had to say, most of them agreed with it. And what are the Democrats doing? Fighting and obstructing our emergency relief. I cannot believe. I did a video on this morning where I said, we did it. Congratulations. The Democrats, you got some of the things you wanted. And here we are. I had to read this story several times, confirm with some friends. This can't be real, can it? Pelosi is not going to. I can't believe it. I am completely awestruck at the obstruction in Congress. Welcome to politics. At a time when people are desperate, businesses are shutting down, and we are facing one of the biggest threats our country has ever faced. This is the leadership we get. It's no surprise that Trump's approval rating is going up. Let's read the stories. The first one I have from Vox, I'll just go over very quickly to show you at 8:10 a.m. optimism from the left. They thought we were going to be moving forward. That Chuck Schumer said the federal government would guarantee 4 months of salary for furloughed workers, 4 months. Yet on Twitter, the progressives are saying it's not enough. We want more. And perhaps the reason that's the reason Pelosi is refusing to hold a vote on this, because she knows that the squad and the far left will reject it and unanimous consent will fail. Before we read this, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. I rely on many of you who give through the various options, PayPal, cryptocurrency, or my physical address to help support what I do, especially in times like this. But don't feel pressure to do so. I know everyone's hurting right now. So the best thing you could do is just share this video and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that when I produce videos, you do get notified, because YouTube tends not to share them. But I want to show you this. The Senate has struck a $2 trillion deal on the coronavirus stimulus. Here's what's in it. The massive legislation includes direct payments, an expansion of unemployment insurance, and loans for small businesses. In fact, at the bottom of the story, they say that it's possible they're going to move towards unanimous consent vote, meaning if everyone who's present just says, let's do it, they could expedite the Senate bill. Pelosi didn't do that. Take a look at this tweet. Jake Sherman for Politico says, the House was in this morning at 10 a.m. and 42 seconds, and they were out at 10:02 and 37 seconds. No business of note, no resignations, etc. Back in tomorrow at 11 a.m. I kid you not. Free Beacon reports Pelosi ends House session in less than 2 minutes. Vote on the emergency stimulus is not expected on Wednesday. I didn't believe it when I read it. I really, really didn't believe it. When the progressive Vox.com is saying we think they're going to rush this through, I didn't understand why that would be the case. But now we know. Governor Cuomo says he's lobbying for House members to reject moving the stimulus bill forward without some additional asks. Maybe it's fair to say we shouldn't rush things. Maybe it's fair to say we got to remain calm and not panic. Here's the issue. The Republicans had been negotiating this over the weekend. They skipped their recess. They came together with the Democrats, and then the Democrats rejected the bill. They rejected it a second time. And now finally, they all agree. So you know what? All I can really ask for, the bill will not be perfect. It will not be perfect. But if both sides can compromise, and if the Democrats holding out won them some bonuses, some of the things they want, fine, please just get this through, because the American people can't last. We cannot shut down our economy. I am seeing sad posts from people talking about how their family businesses are being shuttered and they don't know if they can reopen. But this is what we get. Cuomo says, no, I want more money for my state. And if one member rejects this in unanimous consent, Pelosi has no choice. It's done. And perhaps that's why she's holding it up, because they know the Democrats are not unified. It takes but one progressive to say no to this, and unanimous consent would fail. There are also many people who are out, so they don't know if they could pass it. The story from Roll Call says, coronavirus stimulus deal and improvement, but under review. Speaker says bill has moved a great deal closer to America's workers, but shockingly, she says she doesn't know. She doesn't know what she'll do moving forward. Pelosi said Wednesday that a massive stimulus agreement reached by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and key members of the Trump administration shows improvement over a GOP proposal released late last week, but she didn't give a clear sign of approval or commit to a House vote. House Democrats will now review the final provisions and legislative text of the agreement to determine a course of action, she said in a statement. I want to remind you, she has her own. She has her own bill. $2.5 trillion, 1,404 pages. It includes the words diversity 32 times or something like that. It's got student debt forgiveness. It's got climate provisions. None of it seems to matter for the American people. I think I know why she's obstructing. She is truly between a rock and a hard place. The Senate Democrats have agreed. This is the compromise. Let's move forward. They won what they wanted to a certain degree. But Pelosi knows, because she was told by another member of the Democratic Party, now is our chance to reshape things in our vision. It's her chance. So if she holds out on this, she's going to force them to give her what she wants, and there is nothing they can do about it. So she won't hold the vote. Why? She's making the rest of us stew. You see, in an op-ed from USA Today, which I covered several times because it's shocking, they said the Republicans are desperate. Now's our chance to push in all of our progressive proposals. So she knows it. She's going to let everyone stew on this, have them freak out. But you know what? I'm not going to stand for it. I'm going to call her out. Roll Call says, Pelosi said the agreement could take negotiators, quote, a long way down the road in meeting the needs of the American people. Thanks to the unity and insistence of Senate and House Democrats, the bill has moved a great deal closer to America's workers, she said. Walking into her Capitol Hill office later in the morning, Pelosi told reporters she's optimistic about the stimulus bill, but won't make a decision about voting until after lawmakers fully review the bill. Democrats in Senate literally worked on it. What more needs to be reviewed? I'm probably, look, I'd be willing to say there's going to be bad stuff from the Republicans and the Democrats. And I understand in 2008, things were really, really bad. And we reaped the negative the negative rewards of not having done it properly. But it's called desperate measures. It's not going to be, candy canes and rainbows. We're going to see a backlash to a certain degree, but we've got to move quickly. It's very likely that we will suffer consequences from anything we do. Roll Call says, quote, we're reviewing it now. We have our staff and our chairman reviewing the bill. I'm optimistic, but we'll see. It's unlikely the House will vote to approve the legislation Wednesday, though. The House came in for a pro forma session at 10 a.m. and quickly adjourned until 11 a.m. Thursday. Had the House wanted to leave open the option of passing the stimulus package today, it likely wouldn't have recessed subject to the call of the chair. So what they're basically saying, it's not going to happen. They said they're going to come. No, it's possible. By the time you watch this, maybe there was an emergency shift. Maybe they decided to come in. But at the time of filming this, no. They say as of mid-morning, negotiators had not released final bill text after reaching a bipartisan agreement in the early morning hours that is designed to help reduce the economic impacts of the pandemic. Shortly after the agreement was announced, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said that he hopes Pelosi will bring the compromise agreement to the House floor and not make any changes that would require it to go back to the Senate before it could be enacted by President Trump, saying, I can't speak for the speaker. I hope she takes it up and she passes it as is, said Mnuchin, who has been a key negotiator for the Trump administration throughout the last several days, as the legislative and executive branches worked to find an agreement. The Senate is expected to vote on the measure later Wednesday after it comes into session at noon. But here we are. You see, Andrew Cuomo is trying to get it rejected, saying the numbers just don't work. It's terrible. And maybe that's fair. He's saying that they're looking at a $15 billion shortfall and would only be getting between 1.3 and 3 billion. Look, I get it, man. Maybe it's not enough. I'm not an expert. I don't know how much money you need in New York, but I know New York is in trouble. So I know we got to do what we can. But this was the Democrats and the Republicans coming together and negotiating now for the second or third time. If we can't get it through now, I don't know what you're going to expect. You think you're going to go in and demand 10 times what was offered and it's going to work? I just don't see it. Now we can see interesting things happening. In the polls, Donald Trump is skyrocketing. Congress is dropping. The media is less trustworthy than Trump. And I think we know why. Because it's not Trump who's obstructing the emergency relief. His team's all over it, even negotiating with Democrats. But even, get this, the Trump administration, Steve Mnuchin, negotiated with the Senate Democrats and said, fine, we'll put in things you want. And Pelosi said, we'll see. So why would the American people blame Trump for this? He's been working very hard. He's been on TV every day. Yet we see this hit ad. This one failed. They say, we don't blame Trump for the pandemic, but he failed in his reaction. And they use out of context information once again to smear the president. But in response to this, Tom Bevan of Real Clear Politics said, careful what you wish for. The last 4 polls on approval of Trump's handling of the pandemic, 56%, 49, 55, and 60. This is truly remarkable. Check this out. Axios Harris has Trump positive 12 points. We see Emerson at positive 8 points. ABC News positive 12. The Economist +2 and Gallup +22 from Gallup. The American people overwhelmingly support the president's actions in dealing with the pandemic and the economy, for that matter, at a time when the economy is in serious crisis. And this is why, in one of the most shocking things ever, take a look at this. In a poll from CBS, who do you trust and not trust to give you accurate information about the virus and what to do during the outbreak? I don't believe it. I still don't believe it, but this is a CBS poll. Donald Trump, 44% trust him and 56% don't trust him. Okay. He doesn't have the majority of the American people trusting him. I get it. But take a look at this. National media, 43% trust the national media and 57% don't trust. Dare I say there are slightly more people that trust Trump and don't trust the media. You know why? Because while we're seeing what is painfully obvious to everyone, the polls are going up even with all of the negative press. Congress approval is ticking slightly down. It's at 21% with everything going on. Trump's approval rating is just up. So what does the media say? I kid you not. The media must stop live broadcasting Trump's dangerous, destructive coronavirus briefings. And they're doing it. Business Insider, TV networks cut away from the White House briefing as Trump contradicted his health experts. The media said they wouldn't cover it anymore, and they're stopping now. And they're saying, it's misinformation. It's all negative. It's all bad. No, I think I know what we're really seeing. We are seeing a media that is desperate to stop. They're desperate to stop the American people from hearing what Trump has to say, because Trump is talking about potential treatments that may work. He's citing actual stories, and the media comes out and lies. Just the other day, we heard a horrifying story about an older couple who ingested some kind of fish tank anti-parasitic. The media then claimed it was Trump's fault. Trump never said anything about ingesting fish cleaner. He was referencing stories that have been all over the media about two drugs taken together show promising results. When one journalist started going after the president, he pushed back and said, you're a bad reporter. So what did the media do? They clipped it out of context. The American people can see through it, and we know what's going on right now. Take a look at this from Gallup. President Trump's job approval rating up to 49%. Now, it's not above 50, but it is positive. President Trump may be enjoying a small rally in public support as the nation faces the COVID pandemic. 49% of U.S. adults, up from 44% earlier this month, approve of the job Trump is doing as president on the whole. Trump also had 49% job approval ratings, the best of his presidency in late January and early February, around the time of the Senate impeachment trial that resulted in his acquittal. Listen, the Senate, while all of this was going nuts, when Trump formed the pandemic, task force, suspended travel from China, the Senate Democrats, the House Democrats were seeking to impeach the president. So is any of this surprising to you, that they're once again flubbing everything that's happening? I'm sorry, man. I have to say, I was reading through the news. I was hitting people up like this. Tell me this is not true. There's no way that they're obstructing this again. I'm sorry, man. I'm genuinely speechless. I just don't get it. Gallup says independents and Democrats' approval of Trump's performance has increased slightly since earlier this month, tying as the best he has registered to date among each group. The president's approval rating among Republicans was already above 90%. Yeah, go figure. We get it. And remains so, but is not currently his highest on record, 94% in late January. Trump's response to the novel coronavirus pandemic may be behind his higher overall approval rating. Americans give the president generally positive reviews for his handling of the situation, with 60% approving and 38% disapproving. 94% of Republicans, 60% of independents, and 27% of Democrats approve of his response. Slightly more than a quarter of Democrats approving of Trump. That to me is nuts. The Trump administration has received some criticism for his response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including that the president downplayed the threat at least up until his nationally televised address on March 11th. I'm going to stop right now and tell you something absolutely insane. The date of this poll is, I believe, up to March 23rd. This poll, March 13th to 22nd. This poll was taken before the Democrats and the Republicans announced a deal on the stimulus package, causing a major market rally. This poll was taken before yesterday's market rally of one of the largest rallies in the history of the United States. I believe we saw the market grow by more points than we've ever seen in about 100 years. This poll was taken before that. You know what that means? The next coming poll will probably show the president well above water with a massive approval rating. At the same time, Nancy Pelosi can't hold a vote to get the American people the relief they need. On Twitter, the progressives are screeching, saying it's not enough. They want debt forgiveness. They want more money. Regular Americans are not on Twitter. They probably don't care. But the reason why Pelosi is probably stalling is because the squad is active and the Twitterati is her base. So yeah, they'll block it. They say on March 16th, Trump acknowledged the seriousness of the situation by urging people to avoid gatherings of more than 10 people and have workers and students stay home if possible. The administration has had daily press conferences since then to update the nation on what the federal government is doing to address the situation. Two aspects of Trump's latest approval rating suggest a presidential approval rally effect. His rating shows a fairly sudden increase, and that increase is seen among both independents and Democrats, both highly unusual for Trump in particular. Historically, presidential drop approval has increased when the nation is under threat. Every president from Franklin Roosevelt through George W. Bush saw their approval rating surge at least 10 points after a significant national event of this kind. During these rallies, independents and supporters of the opposing party to the president typically show heightened support for the commander-in-chief. Significant rally effects appear to be a relic of the past as political polarization in presidential approval ratings has reached new levels. Presidential approval ratings today are characterized by consistent, exceedingly low approval ratings from opponents of the president's party. As a result, neither Obama nor Trump saw rally effects as big as those of their predecessors, because their usual opponents were reluctant to approve of them regardless of what was happening in the country. What they're basically telling you right now is that the orange man is bad. And because the orange man is bad, they must reject everything he says no matter what. But something interesting has happened. You see, when Trump came out and said that he was going to shut down travel from China and he was forming this task force, we saw the media go nuts that this was not a big deal and the flu was worse. And then Trump started saying the flu was worse. So the media did a 180 and started dragging the president. The orange man must always be bad. But at a certain point, people see through the lies. And I think it's because Trump has been holding daily press briefings. He's brought on experts that people trust to an absurd degree, like Dr. Fauci. They say at most, Obama's approval rating rose by 7 points after they took out Osama bin Laden. 7 points is also the largest short-term increase for Trump. His approval rating increased from 37 to 44 after the federal government shutdown ended, and Trump touted U.S. economic gains in his State of the Union address. Trump's job approval rating increased 6 points in April 2019 after special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Trump's campaign's ties with Russia officially concluded. At the time, Attorney General William Barr largely cleared the president of wrongdoing. Trump's job approval rating also increased 5 points earlier this year when it was clear he would be acquitted in the Senate impeachment trial. The media has been running cover for the Democrats for the longest time. The media is trying to spin a narrative because the orange man must be bad. like I just mentioned. And now we can see how it's just truly, truly breaking down. Why won't the media call out Nancy Pelosi for holding this up? Where are all the stories? How is it that the left-wing website Vox.com, VOX, can say the House Democrats are going to expedite this one and it looks like we're all good? And then Pelosi holds it up. Where's Vox to say it's her fault for doing this? And more importantly, when Nancy Pelosi's daughter said that the person who attacked Rand Paul was right and got suspended from Twitter, where was the media to call her out, to ask her about this? Nowhere to be seen. I'll conclude with this. Fox News says CNN, MSNBC failed to ask Nancy Pelosi about daughter's controversial Rand Paul tweet. Rand Paul recently tested positive for COVID-19, and he has lung damage because he was attacked by his neighbor. My understanding is the neighbor was forced to pay a fine to Rand Paul. And Nancy Pelosi's daughter said that Rand Paul's neighbor was right, essentially, to attack him. The media won't call her out, but if this was Trump Jr. or any one of the Trump administration or family, it would be headlines across the board. Front page, above the fold. Trump Jr. said this, did that. Nancy Pelosi, nothing. So when she holds this up, I'll tell you what, I'll give a shout out to Chuck Schumer right now. Thank you for negotiating with the Republicans and coming to an agreement on this bill. But you know what? It doesn't matter. The Democrats are not a unified party. And even if Chuck Schumer comes out and says we're good on this, it doesn't matter because Pelosi is going to make sure it doesn't move. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll happen later today. It doesn't sound like it will. Maybe tomorrow. But man, I am increasingly worried they are going to shut this down. I don't know how much longer America can last. And Trump was right when he says the economy needs to get started up again. Of course, they attacked him for saying it, but it's true. The cure could be worse than the disease itself. Family businesses are shutting down. They may never open back up. We need to make sure that we can handle this calmly, rationally. And that means we may face serious risks. But if we do nothing and the economy collapses, then people could die as well. I don't know what the right answer is. I'm not an economist. All I know is if the Democrats and Republicans have negotiated in good faith and fine, we're done, ready to go. The Democrats even got Republicans to concede in several points. Why is Pelosi holding this up? I'll see you all in the next segment at 6 p.m. YouTube.com/TimCastNews. It's a different channel.
N3 Radio is a nonprofit teaching platform for non-professionals. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, professional use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
We'll turn to Perky'sPaperbacks.com for the best in... What do they have? Hey, how do you like reading a book? You know, an actual book. We'll turn to Perky'sPaperbacks.com. Perky paperback. How do you like sitting back and reading an actual book? You know, feeling it's getting a little awkward with the whole feeling with the thumb and the finger. You know. Still like the feeling of turning a page with your. Why don't you turn to Perky'sPaperbacks.com? It's just not working. It isn't. It really isn't. Stop. Read a book. No, that doesn't work, does it? You know, when you could actually turn the pages and feel the I hate this. I hate this so much. I've done so many takes. I hate this. Old sci-fi, mystery, western, and other specialty paperback books, and you can find all of them once again at Perky'sPaperbacks.com to find the old stuff that nobody reads anymore. That's stupid. Wow, let me try again. Hey, do you like sitting back and reading an old paperback book? Well, turn to Perky'sPaperbacks.com for the old sci-fi, mystery, western, and other specialty paperback books at Perky'sPaperbacks.com, a special sponsor of N3 Radio and at N3Radio.com. Yes! Are we clear? We're good? Yes! Yeah, it only took less than 20. Less than 20 takes is always good.
It's time to start.
Rock concert movement number 1. The basic head bob. Ready, go.
The Artist Spotlight, only here on N3Radio.com. Robert brings you the best and the greatest hits from your favorite artists. Live Thursdays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, only here on N3Radio.com.
Twisted Reality for Twisted People, a talk show for the truly insane. Join Robert and Stacy for some truly interesting talk radio on no excuses, no apologies, no regrets. Weird stories, epic music, and more. Live Thursday starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, only here on N3 Radio.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're on your way to meet up with friends, but you can't seem to get anywhere quickly. You don't want your friends to be annoyed, so you text. You're on your way. Five seconds is the average time your eyes are off the road while texting while driving. Make sure you get where you're going.
The Den of Iniquities, hosted by Ambrogio. Ambrogio brings you the best in metal, death metal, goth, industrial, and much, much more. Fridays, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern, only here on N3Radio.com. Listen in.
All right, kids, hurry up, man. Okay, hurry up. Here, I'll tell you what to do. No, man. I ain't give you're gonna give it a shot. No, you're gonna give it a shot. I ain't giving her the shot. I never done this before. I ain't never done it before either, all right? I ain't starting now. Look, you brought her here, and that means that you're gonna give it the shot. The day that I bring an OD and bitch to your house, then I give her the shot. Give her the shot. Give it to me. Here. Give me that. All right, count to 3. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3!
N3 Radio in the mix.